Blaze Media has exclusive video showing that on January 6th, 2021, Capitol Police, in the midst of, supposedly investigating a viable pipe bomb outside DNC headquarters, interestingly enough, decided to divert CCTV cameras away from the scene. Watch.
Capitol CCTV camera number 3173 was the most important camera covering the DNC pipe bomb story event. You've probably already seen Thomas Massey's release of the video in which it appears that a Capitol Police plainclothes officer has discovered the bomb and has alerted the Secret Service and the Metro Police officers that were on the scene. You've probably also already seen the bomb-sniffing dog, and you may have already also seen the arrival of then Vice President-elect Kamala Harris's motorcade. What you haven't seen is, what somebody in the Capitol Police Command Center didn't want us to see. And that's the actual investigation of the bomb scene. What we're going to show you now is how they hid that from us. What we were able to access from the Capitol CCTV viewing room is how long that camera, number 3173, had remained in that fixed position. We were able to go back as far as December 28th of 2020, just 8 days or so before the events of January 6th. And from that review, we could see that the camera's positioning was in that fixed position for days, weeks, months. But ultimately, it was only just these very few minutes after the bomb's discovery that camera began to move. The camera then began to move, pan, zoom in, looking for the bomb itself. The one thing that we know for sure is that camera 3173 was the most crucial of all the cameras. It had the closest and the clearest view of what law enforcement's response, what their investigation, and ultimately the destruction and detonation, or the attempted detonation of the bomb would be by the bomb squad robot. But inexplicably, and I'm getting tired of using that word every single time we do one of these investigations, but that seems to be the key word when it's related to January 6th, is that at approximately 1:40 p.m., camera number 3173 was remotely directed away from the scene at about a 90-degree angle, and then it remained in this newly fixed position away from the investigation for the rest of the day, or at least until midnight on January 6th. Now, it might be assumed that this was an error, an accident, an oversight. Maybe somebody bumped the joystick on camera number 3173, until we then review camera number 8020. As we are seeing the robot deployed down the street, headed towards the bomb, someone, again, directs camera 8020 away from the investigation scene and then affixes it once again, it seems like at a hard right 90-degree angle away from the investigation once again. Why would they turn those cameras away from the investigative scene? Who ordered those cameras to be turned away? What were we not allowed to see?
I mean, all just a crazy coincidence, I'm sure. I want to welcome to the program the man whose voice you just heard narrating this video, Steve Baker, our very own Blaze Media investigative journalist. And Steve, we're sitting here watching this, and of course our mics are not on, but I'm just like watching this, like those bastards, they knew all along what they were doing.
Right.
And this isn't even all that you've released. So there's more.
There's more.
So we have that video, but correct me if I'm wrong, I guess it turns out they couldn't even engage in a cover-up properly because maybe they forgot about one camera? Do you think that that's accurate? You always seem to give them way more credit than I do.
Well, I always try to go to incompetence first before we get to the inexplicable.
Okay.
There, I said that word again.
Okay.
And that's really where you have to start. And especially when you're talking about the most incompetent government in the world, and essentially the Capitol Police are the security guards for the most incompetent people in the world. So you're not expecting a lot of competence.
Right.
Competence in that regard. But these are ostensibly higher level professionals because these are the people that actually work with stuff that'll blow you up. You make a mistake in their job, there's a price to be paid, a serious price to be paid. And our investigations have been successfully narrowing down to who, as I like to always refer to it, are sitting at the Star Chamber and who was putting this together. We are convinced, beyond any shadow of a doubt, that there was elements of a setup that day, maybe several different ones going on at the same time, because there were a lot of competing interests that were happening that day. But as I've been writing about for over 3 years now, is that I know for a fact that the Capitol Police themselves were set up, particularly the frontline uniformed officers that were thrown into that melee that day, unexpected, unprepared, untrained, and ultimately without the proper intelligence passed down line so that they knew what was going on. And then we come to the bomb, and it gets juicier all the time.
Yeah, well, and so I do want to get into, I want to get your thoughts on if this were, let's say, a planned event that took place, why? What would the purpose be? Because here's what's happened. They made it a whole big deal. It was a huge deal when it first happened. And what we were told was that the FBI says the bombs were planted around January 5th, sometime in the nighttime, right? And they remained undetected until the next afternoon, when we now know that it was a plainclothes Capitol Police officer who came and notified them. But we didn't know that yet. We didn't know that. And so right in the moment, they're like, oh, we're searching for this person. They left it at both DNC and RNC headquarters. These were viable bombs. That's what we were told. And we have even testimony, I think, from the then head of FBI's Washington field office, who went over and said, they would have exploded. They could have exploded at any moment, even though he acknowledged under oath that the bombs were connected to 60-minute kitchen timers that couldn't have detonated more than 17 hours later, right? So they're hyping it up and hyping it up and hyping it up. And then all of a sudden, it just goes away. And we don't hear anything about it. We don't get any leads. There's no new leads. There seems to be no really investigation done into it. It just, boom, goes away. And on top of that, we have, as we just played, not only the video of these cameras just oopsie daisy, as Steve mentioned. I don't know, maybe someone had a pizza for lunch and their butt was extra big and it just accidentally knocked the joystick in a different direction. I'm sorry, not once, but twice, okay? But we also have this other video that Steve dropped today. Was it today?
Last night.
Last night. That shows the one view that we do have of this supposed viable bomb that we were told. And it gets a little interesting from there. I want to play that video. Watch.
There was another camera, and this particular camera is one they really didn't want you to see. We received a tip from a senior congressional aide who told us to go look at this particular camera and see what we could see. Well, we did just that. When we saw camera number 4205, we saw that it was zooming around and panning just like the other cameras were. And finally, it came and settled on a particular scene, probably then ignored by whoever the camera operator was, because it never returns to its original position for the rest of the day. But just on the far left edge of the screen, we can now show you the robot extending the water cannon, and boom. Now that you've seen the bomb being destroyed, it wasn't actually detonated. As a matter of fact, this water cannon is a disruptor, and it fires a very high velocity, almost like a shotgun shell round of water or other type of liquid meant to disrupt the circuits and also whatever the explosive materials are inside the device. So what we're witnessing here is one of two things. Either the water cannon did its job perfectly as designed, and it is very reliable, or we're looking at an inert device. Maybe both. There's more, a lot more coming from this camera. To be perfectly honest with you, there were powerful forces that did not want this footage to be given to us. As a matter of fact, we didn't even have it until last night.
So, on top of that, as if that wasn't already enough, there is also CCTV footage of a bomb-sniffing dog who is seen walking right past DNC headquarters the morning of January 6th, so after this was supposed to have been planted.
Right.
And it just walks right past, right? There's no signs of a bomb. But, you know, maybe the dog just wasn't properly trained. Maybe the camera operators had a big butt and accidentally knocked the joysticks. And also maybe the bomb-sniffing dog didn't know how to do his job. And also maybe the bomb was viable, but then just something happened and there was no explosion. Maybe all of these things just occurred. Or
absolutely nothing makes sense about this. And this is really what we have to do is we have to go to the beginning, we have to do the hard work, we have to go look at these videos, and then we have to start analyzing it. And we did our job as we were putting this story together. We didn't just find the videos and throw them out there for the world to see. We started then calling EOD experts, explosive ordnance disposal experts. We talked to people highest level of command at Capitol Police, currently and former, highest level of command in former and otherwise in certain other agencies that I probably shouldn't mention right here. And then and we explained to them even before we had these videos in our possession, because there was 3 of our Blaze analysts who had eyeballs on this. Yeah. So we were confident that we were going to tell the story even if they never gave us the videos, because as I mentioned in that last clip, there were some pretty serious people at the highest levels did not want this to get out. And once you see the bomb's destruction, you go, oh, well, why? I mean,
what was that?
I mean, the water cannon did its job.
Right.
It blew it apart, and there was no damage. But there are other reasons why they didn't want this to get out. First of all, the moving of the cameras. That was deliberate, because every single law enforcement personnel that we've spoken to, current, former, this agency, that agency, whatever, have all said the same thing. There is no way we would have turned those cameras off of the investigation scene unless we were trying to hide something.
And on top of that, who would have had the ability to make the call to turn the camera?
That would have come from the Capitol Police Command Center, which was, let's give them a little bit of grace here. Oh, there was a lot going. I know you don't. There was a lot going on at the Capitol that day.
Sure.
Okay, but this is where you get into too many coincidences to just be incompetence. Right. All right, because just 10 minutes before the famous Ray Epps breach of that barricade line, that was the first attack of that day against Capitol Police officers. Then it was just before that, I should say, that the first bomb was found at the Republican National Committee headquarters at the RNC. And then the breach happens at 12:52. And then this bomb is found by a Capitol Police plainclothes officer at 1:05. So just another 15 minutes or so, 20 minutes or so after the initial breach. So you have a bomb found just before the breach. You have a bomb found right after the breach. And what is the net result of those 2 bombs being discovered? It's a depletion of the defenses at the Capitol, because they have to divert resources by the dozens of uniformed officers to set up the perimeters and patrol, block intersections, cordon off the areas.
Right.
And so
That makes sense.
So now,
that makes sense.
And even my colleagues in mainstream media will admit off the record, off camera, off mic, that they know that those bombs were diversionary tactics. Now, they may not agree who I think they might have been ordered to divert resources.
Right.
But it's very apparent that these were specifically designed to divert resources from the Capitol.
Wow. So you mentioned in the video, I think it was the second video that we just watched, that there's more to come.
There is more to come. I mean,
Steve, we're just trying to keep you out of jail. And you just keep exposing all of their evil.
You know, I told Pat Gray this morning that I think that maybe me doing this is actually helping in that regard. Because, look, at some point, and this is what I said in my press conference here just a couple of weeks ago, I said, let me do my job.
Right.
Just let me do my job. If you care about justice, DOJ, FBI, let me do my job. Because right now, for the most part, I'm doing it better than you are.
No kidding. No kidding. Oh my gosh, this is complete madness. Well, Steve, I would tell you to stay out of trouble, but it's clear you're not going to do that. But we look forward to you continuing to drop all of these bombs on these people who, this is me speaking, not Steve Baker, but who I don't know any other way to put it than they planned this whole thing the whole time. And the people who showed up at the Capitol fell right into their hands. Like they saw it coming, they planned accordingly, and it all went according to their plan, except they didn't anticipate people like Steve going back and being able to review that footage. They just didn't. That was the one thing that they did not anticipate.
They never believed that a Republican Congress would get control again and therefore get control of those Capitol CCTV videos. I think that was completely out of their mind at the time. And there was also a certain level of control that Capitol Police Command and what they call their board have control over that, except that once you get a GOP Speaker of the House, by rule, the Speaker of the House has 100% decision-making authority about how those videos are used or distributed.
If you like this clip and you want to see the full episode, click here. And if you want to subscribe to the channel, come on, you know you do. Click here.